Welcome to Steamworx. I'm Tim. This is Tim's Top Tool Tips. It can be really annoying when your chuck locks up and you can't open it because you've got bits of metal stuck inside the jaws. The temptation to force it open is quite high. This can be not good for your chuck. It's probably a very good time to do a little bit of maintenance. Most chucks have witness marks that allow the back plate to be realigned properly with the chuck body. A couple of centre pots works just as well. I'm using water-based degreaser to do the cleaning. There are 3 Allen screws holding the back plate to the body. These can be quite tight, so use of a spanner on one of the chuck jaws will help to loosen them. The back plate is a really tight fit on the chuck body and needs to be. Fortunately, they've provided 3 spaces for jack screws. The jack screws are used to push the back away from the body. For some reason, the jack screw is a 1/4 inch Whitworth thread and the body screws are M6. I only have 1 jack screw the correct size, so I'm hoping to move it between holes to make sure the back plate comes off square. Now I can see inside. As expected, there are plenty of metal chips in here. There is actually an O-ring, which is an oil seal, and that's absolutely covered in it. I drop the bits as I take them out into the cleaning solution. A quick wipe round so we can see the retaining pins for the pinions. These are screwed into the chuck body. Looks like this one's a bit deep. This one comes out though. Let's try that hole again just in case the screwdriver's changed side. No. Perhaps now. No, definitely need a smaller screwdriver. There you go. Once the pins are out, we can remove the pinions. Everything's dropped into the cleaning solution. It doesn't look like much has happened, but by removing all these parts, we've freed up any tension within the chuck. There's a very good chance that the chuck has been freed up. I can get my fingers in, but I can't quite move the scroll. I've loosely refitted one of the pinions and just gently moving the chuck backwards and forwards using the key, and this seems to have freed it up. I'm now opening the chuck to remove the jaws. Again, we can see there's a lot of metal filings present on the chuck jaws. The scroll itself needs a bit of gentle persuasion, so I'm using a piece of brass rod and gently tapping round using the guides for the chuck jaws for access. All the parts now get a good clean. We're removing all the old grease and oil. It would be a better idea to use gloves using this solution, as it dries your skin out, as I found out later. There were lots of bits of metal in this chuck, no wonder it was jamming up. Checking for wear, although there's witness marks on the pinions, there's no grooves. So very, very superficial. The scroll itself looks as new. There's very little wear at all. You can see the polished surfaces where the pinions have been acting, but yeah, very pleased with this. The chuck jaws are the same, as new. Shiny surfaces where you would expect them to be shiny surfaces, but no real wear. The only real striation was on the end, or on the edges of these pinion pins. Very superficial. The chuck itself is fitted with an oil nipple. Using oil is okay in chucks, but as soon as you fire them up, you get more oil on you, and there's very little oil left in the chuck at the end of a machining session. As I mentioned earlier, the chuck back plate is fitted with a recess for an oil seal, so I've replaced this O-ring. Again, because the chuck is supposed to be lubricated by oil, I guess this is to stop it going everywhere, but as it's on the inside of the chuck, centrifugal force will throw the oil to the outside of the chuck, so it doesn't seem right to me. I suppose it will stop metal chips getting onto the thread, so maybe that's what it's for. What to use instead of oil? Well, I use this stuff. It's a grease-based lubricant, but it's a bit different because it can put up with high pressures which you'd find inside a chuck. The grease itself is not as fluid. It's reasonably dry and seems to work really well. I'm putting plenty on the mating surfaces. As you can see, it's quite stringy, so that tends to suggest to me it's going to stay where it is rather than move around as the chuck spins. That's the scroll back in place. Then the pinions get the same treatment. And finally the retaining pins. Using the right size screwdriver this time. A quick turn round to make sure everything's nice, free and easy, which it is. I'll drop a bit more lube in the middle and then line up with the witness marks on the back plate. I cut the video a bit here because, well, I dropped it and nobody needs to know about that, do they? Making sure the witness marks are aligned properly. This just means that the chuck backplate and the body are aligned as they were when they originally manufactured. The chuck jaws will have been ground in place. 3-jaw chucks are not that accurate as far as concentricity is concerned, but at least we're trying to make it as accurate as it can be. The fixing bolts get a bit of grease, just helps them coming out when we do this next time. Then they're tightened up. Body and back plate back in place, just the screws to tighten up, and then we can look at putting the jaws back in. Each jaw is numbered. Most chucks start with jaw number 1, and I'm moving the scroll here so that the beginning or the lead of the scroll is just before number 1 chuck jaw guide. The jaw numbers are stamped on the jaws and also on the chuck body itself. A bit of grease and it's slid into the guide, not forgetting to grease the side guides. The scroll is then indexed to jaw number 2 and the process repeated until all 3 jaws are in. A final check to make sure all the jaws are in the right place and it meets in the middle, and that's it. Maintenance done. Ready for another spell in the lathe.